Okay, class, so back to mini lecture 4 on this lecture for October 26th on agriculture and deforestation in the Amazon. I'm going to share my screen to come back with, we ended off there by looking at one of the private sector initiatives to try to reduce deforestation and with some evidence of positive effect. So where are we in 2020? So this is been such an interesting journey for me as I've been teaching this class starting in 2009. For the first 5 or 6 years I was teaching it, there were improvements, or at least 3 or 4 years that I was teaching it. Reduction on year-to-year deforestation rates, far lower than they had been before, touting Brazil as really the most successful country in the world in reducing its greenhouse gases associated with agriculture, major complementary effect and knock-on effect in reducing the flying, reducing the threat to the flying rivers, reducing threat to deforestation. Really a big success story, much better ability to reduce tropical deforestation than we would see, for example, in Southeast Asia. But what's the situation since then? We've seen this large kind of surge again, new surges in deforestation. This is data from let's see, I think this is from 2019, data put together by NASA from their satellite imagery and looking at the plate locations of fires. So this is the ability to kind of track what's going on with deforestation in real time. You can see all of these fires, across the whole region, from southern Brazil, in Bolivia, some in Paraguay, and then intense areas of fires in the Amazon, with some areas being particularly intense, right? Sort of along the river and major tributaries, major kind of hot spots of fires clearing land. We also they're back to fires. They're back to this idea of the battle for the Amazon of Tollefson's, using Tollefson's language, is real battle, right? So this is 2017. In 2017, Global Witness, an international non-governmental organization, documented that 57 people have been killed in Brazil who due to conflicts over the environment and conflicts between those who are taking advantage of environmental degradation and those trying to defend against environmental degradation. Brazil that year at the highest number of deaths due to kind of conflict over the environment. Philippines leading them in number 2 and Colombia number 3. This year I looked at the 2019 numbers and Colombia is in first place. They've essentially swapped with Brazil, but also similar kind of fights and battles over resources in these areas. The Global Witness report for 2019 shows mining to be the number 1 kind of culprit, agribusiness number 2, and logging number 3. So these are real battles of people laying down their lives for the environmental cause and sometimes losing their lives as a result. Where are we now here with the kind of the story about international cooperation, Brazil recognizing its role as a custodian of national and global resources. First is this challenge to the countries like Norway and Germany that are entered into agreements with the government of Brazil to reduce deforestation. We have the new current president of Brazil, President Bolsonaro, making this statement about the kind of the goal of those European countries to interfere with the sovereignty of Brazil, and that so these countries that send money here, they don't send it out of charity. They send it with the aim of interfering with our sovereignty. And then there was when France was the host of the G7 conference. President Macron of France brought up Brazil deforestation into a discussion without Brazil being there, and you can see this furious response from Bolsonaro. I regret that President Macron seeks to take advantage of what is a domestic Brazilian issue and of other Amazonian countries for personal political gain. So this, and sparking this idea of a colonialist mindset. And so this idea of sort of the agreement, the grand kind of bargain between countries to sort of support Brazil in this custodian role, used in this other way as this kind of threat to sovereignty. And overall, deforestation, as we saw in the earlier numbers, has increased, and it increased again in 2020 during the pandemic time. It looks, the most recent numbers show clearings increased by 28% compared to the previous year, and that year was up. So we've got large new reason for worry about what's going on in the Amazon as a result of these challenges about there is a result of Brazil not fulfilling its obligations to reduce deforestation under the RED agreement, the Reduced Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation Agreement. The steering committee, which was steering the Brazil Climate Fund, had international representation on it. Brazil government suspended that, so as this kind of threat on their sovereignty. And as a result, Norway and Germany both suspended their donations to the Amazon Fund at the same time. So kind of back to impasse, back after several years of progress. So I'm going to stop there. That's so unfortunate to end this set of lectures with sort of this negative note. The challenge is that this, and the interesting part of this is that these things ebb and flow. There will be at some point be a new government that may well embrace the environment more fully than does the current government. They might be a new set of programs and policies put in place to both couple this intensification with this control on land, right? But this is, given the vastness of this area of the Amazon, there's always some room for slippage. The other thing with this vastness of the Amazon, that any progress which is made is of global significance, right? The other thing, in a sense, with this flying rivers story, back to that, just kind of wrap that up a bit, is that to the extent to which the industrial heartland sees the need to maintain the Amazon for the flying rivers, which they benefit from, then there might be more kind of endogenous concern beyond, say, the biodiversity and the carbon emission concern. So that's that lecture for today. I will stop sharing and stop recording.